Welcome to the Wickedly Smart Women podcast, featuring stellar conversations with emerging and established wickedly smart women. Thanks for joining us today as we celebrate the wickedly smart women who are committed, care deeply, and have the courage to take action and create change all around the world. Now here's your host, Emerald Greenforest.
Welcome to another episode of the Wickedly Smart Women podcast, where we celebrate wickedly smart women and provide our listeners with a wealth of wisdom and immediately actionable steps to be smarter, spunkier, and more successful in their impact and their leadership. This is your host, Emerald Greenforest, and today we welcome our special guest, Judy Winslow. Judy Winslow is the business owner's master brandologist, the bomb, who helps you build a business with soul. She holds an MFA in Communication Arts, is a Coach U graduate, has won numerous Addy Awards, the industry standard for corporate identity work, logos, and packages. She's published articles, blog, and book, was recognized in a top 100 coaching listing along with Tony Robbins and Martha Beck, has worked with Fortune 100s to startups, and is engaged in continuous learning to grow her skills. She founded TEDxSarasota, speaks and consults internationally, and enjoys working with creative CEOs who are changing the way business gets done. And I have a deep, long, personal relationship with Jay. We have known one another for at least a decade, and she is one of those just extraordinary people who make up, like a constellation for me. When I look out on the world, she is in the constellation of sparkling star sisters that I see and I appreciate and I love for the joy that she brings to the world and the fullness of herself that she shows up with. So I'm just really, really grateful, Jay, for you to be here. And thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, darling, we've been down the road for a decade and seen the ups, seen the downs, seen the ins, seen the outs, and you're here. You're still here. And so that means that you are really creative and you're also a leader. And so I really want to ask you to start our time together, Jay. What keeps you in motion? Like, what is it that keeps you continuing to be moving ahead?
Fabulous question. I believe that there are people on the planet, you are included in this, as am I, that we just don't have another MO. So it's a very long story, but I really was lucky enough to tap into my why, as we call it, but sort of what lit me up when I went to university, and it was kind of a big surprise. Like, I had no idea. I was pretty apathetic. I was a suicidal teen. I hated school. I was just a little worm in my chair, and nothing was connecting and getting me excited. And in university, I found this thing that got me so pumped up, and I realized that I call it making a difference muscle. So that piece of me that is really connected to that just got kind of, that pilot light got lit, and it's still burning. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, let's talk about what it's burning in service to. I mean, one of the things that you are is a highly creative person. And I, watched you over the years recreate yourself multiple times. And so I'd love to have you talk a little bit about your own creativity, how you channel your creativity, and how you apply your creativity and that spark, that, make a difference spark in everything that you do for your clients.
Well, it's very interesting that you would even call me creative, because I don't think of myself as wildly creative, although I aspire to that. And there is a lot around design thinking, creative problem solving, and sort of the genre of creativity, which has so many facets and outlets. So I really am interested in all of that, but it wasn't conscious for a very long time. I wasn't as hungry about it. So I think, unlike some, as I've gone through my journey, I've actually become more hungry, more fired up, more fueled by what's possible, more interested in making an impact, more interested in highlighting creativity, in helping my clients access that for themselves, in using this, what I consider to be this platform and opportunity for your greatest self-expression as an adult, which is through your business. So how do we, something that we do all day, every day, find ways to tap into what's possible through our own lens? Like, no one else has the lens that you have. No one sees the world as Emerald does, and no one sees the world as I do. And this is true for everyone, not only the business owner, but of course, everyone who participates in that chain and participates with them. So knowing that that is so, like in your bones and in your DNA, you are then almost given permission to yourself and by the universe. I think it's a divine power that you now are able to figure out and puzzle with and play with. Okay, how is that then going to be expressed? And it's interesting that you said reinvent myself or reiterate or whatever the word exactly that you use. I don't think of it that way. It's kind of been this bizarre evolution that at each turn is such a surprise. Really, it's just like, oh my, really? That's what I'm doing now. But it makes sense.
Yeah, well, and so maybe with you, it's more about, what I've seen is it's more like a refinement with you. As I've watched you over the years with your evolutions, it's like more of a refinement, kind of like when they talk about the great sculptors of the Renaissance and they say, oh, it was already in the stone. I just took away the parts that were hiding this beautiful statue. So with you, the beautiful thing about you, Jay, is you have evolved, but you haven't scattered, which I see a lot in business. You know, a lot of business owners where they try one thing and then they move, and the big happy word right now is pivot. Well, maybe you don't pivot. Maybe you just twist a little bit further into what you're already doing, right?
That's right. That's right.
And so with you, it's more, I've seen like a refinement, but there's always that core piece of Jay that is always kind of showing. It's just maybe another facet of that core piece of Jay that's always showing. So tell me about how you're navigating with your businesses that you serve right now to help them maybe both get to their own core so that they can weather these storms like a willow tree, right? Rather than fall over like an oak tree, right?
That's right. No, it's more like a palm tree in a hurricane.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So they can weather the storm like a palm tree in a hurricane and have and still maintain their own authentic core.
Yeah. Perfect. So I am seeing right now, and I'd love for whoever's listening to identify this for themselves, but I'm seeing 3 groups right now. So the first group are those that are not only unscathed, but this is an amazing opportunity for, like, their business was built for such a time as this, right? And it wasn't intentional. It just happens to be where they are and then how they are serving the present, really. So that's allowing them to, and all of this is, I believe, an exercise in leaning in. So normally when something is distasteful or we don't like it, what do? We turn away from it. But for me, the strategy, the tactic, the technique has always been to lean in, because that is where, like, that's where the good stuff is. That's where all, like, the marrow is, right? So that's one sector. The next sector is people that have had one foot in and one foot out. We were talking about that earlier. And those are people that I have been encouraging. I just wrote an article on this. I've been encouraging them for years to please, adopt a little of this, you take a little of that. There's just not one lane anymore that's the right way. It's always been about, and remains, considering how do we figure out our own recipe for success. So there's our recipe for success as an individual, as a business owner, as a human, doing life. And then there's all the people that we come in contact with, and how can we up level, raise them, lift as we climb, however you want to describe it, so that we're all moving along the same path, but we are doing it in ways that are hybrids. There's no like, it's done like this, it's not. Ugh. So that situation, that scenario, for me, this is going to sound nutty to some people, but this is what I love, right? Because we have known for over a decade that many of our business paradigms, the way business is done, has been broken in so many categories. You know, like people are saying now, oh, let the cruise ships, let the cruise lines die, let this happen, let that happen. Let's just talk about you in your business, whether you're starting, whether you're a mid-sized business, whether you're whatever, it doesn't matter. It's really about creating this hybrid for yourself. And that's what you and I are talking about, each observing in each other, right? Like, how do we move this down the road? And then the last group are people who are just panicked, don't know what to do, and are really freaking out and may be in a very poor position. But I believe that if they can get on board and even entertain some of the other levels that we just discussed, they will tap into possibility and opportunity and creativity and innovation that was just not available, not because it didn't exist, but they weren't able to see it prior.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Well, the people who are, thriving, who are going to thrive through this have, in most cases, I think, Jay, have actually put in the work of a decade to prepare. Right? At least, some of us have been doing this for a while and have done the evolutionary process. And then there are those middle people that, you're talking about who are half in, half out, the straddlers. Those people are going to get torn apart if they don't make a decision and stand on one side or the other. Right? And then the people who you have prayers for, which I will add my prayers to your prayers, that they will use this time to both acknowledge how they may have caused their own downfall or made a contribution to their own downfall by not acknowledging their own power to create and do something different. Yeah, I think, or that they'll awaken. Yeah. They'll just wake up and then suddenly remember that they're creators and can create. So,
yeah, I hope so. And the other part of that is that if you are someone who is stuck, fearful, kind of panicking, very concerned, I think this is a really great time to confess, if you will, to yourself that doing it alone that may not be the right direction for you right now. There may be times in our own evolution and path where standing strong and being the tree is awesome. But right now, some of the best, I think, outcomes that are going to up-level all of us are collaborations.
Totally
and
agree.
If you think about those in an untraditional, unorthodox way, you actually will have access to more opportunities rather than less. So that's just one of the tips that we look at when we start to say, okay, let's take a breath and assess before we get crazy and either act too quickly or become paralyzed.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, we are going to have to take a breath and a break right now. But when we come back, we're going to talk more with Jay about what she has for those of you who are listening, who are turned on and tuned in to what she's laying down for you. But right now, we are going to say thank you to all of our listeners who are downloading, rating, and reviewing. We are welcoming thousands of downloads from all over the world. I want to shout out this week. We're now up to 36 countries. I want to shout out this week. You know what? I'm going to shout out to my listeners in Florida because that's where Jay is. Very often I shout out to places all over the world because it's exciting that there's 36 countries downloading, but I want to shout out to Florida today. It's a state that I have a heart for myself. I've been back and forth to Florida many, many times, and I do love the state. And so we'll give a shout out to our listeners in Florida, and we will be right back with Judy Winslow.
The Wickedly Smart Women podcast is brought to you by the Creative Age Consulting Group. Women, are you ready for a big revenue breakthrough so you can stop working like a man and being paid like a woman? Are you ready to take the leap and go deep to claim your value and convert your wisdom to wealth? Is now the time to fulfill your mission and change the world? Creative Age Consulting Group is hired by women just like you who want to break through to their brilliance and be heard by millions while building a sustainable business model that makes bank. Please visit apply.wealthylifemethod.com to apply for an invitation-only consultation. If you have been inspired to receive support in welcoming wealth by making your most heartfelt contribution to the world, be sure to apply for a consultation today. Once again, that is apply.wealthylifemethod.com or click in the link in the show notes to access the application.
And we are back with Judy Winslow. You can find out more about Judy and how she helps people and how she might be able to help you at unforgettableprands.com/special gifts. And that's gifts with an S on the end of it. We will have that in the show notes for you. And when you go to unforgettableprands.com/special gifts, you will receive the Being Unforgettable Starter Kit. So let's talk about that. Judy, let's talk about this idea of being unforgettable. When I remember when that first emerged for and from you, and I was like, oh yes, this is really a powerful call. You know, you're really calling people to be unforgettable. So why don't we talk about what that has impacted in your own life as you stepped into being unforgettable yourself and being kind of the vanguard of the brand, of your own brand, and how that works with the people that you're working with.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I really never thought about it. It wasn't about me at all. So other people have mentioned, oh, how do you embody that? And I'm not sure that I do. Except that it's certainly about, I am not someone that ever really fit in. I've always been a little quirky, a little spunky, a little bit off. And that was very painful, actually, for a very long time. You know, when you're little, you just want to fit in. You want to be like everybody else. You want to do whatever it is. And I never did. And it wasn't until I graduated and was in the working world, and I was literally sitting in a meeting with a Fortune 100 company, with the VP of marketing, you know, doing this pitch. And I thought, oh my gosh, universe, how annoying that this is the lesson that I'm not supposed to fit in. Here I am teaching this company, this Fortune 100 company, revisiting, because certainly they knew the value of not fitting in and how that would translate into sales and, you know, followers. And it just hit me over the head like a 2x4. Wow, universe. But it's sort of more than that. I really found that in working with people that, because Unforgettable Brands it's a division of my company, it's not the umbrella. And the reason that it came about was because what I noticed in working with others and in speaking to so many business owners was that really what the desire was for. Yes, we want to sell stuff, but it really isn't that. The people I work with want to impact. They want to serve. They want to make a difference. They want to love what they do. They want to feel connected. They want to live in alignment. They want to move forward with grace and ease. Like, this is not your normal biz chatter. Like, oh, how do we increase our margins? Do we talk about that? Hell yeah. But it's not the only thing that is going on with your business. There's so many facets to a brand. But at the end of the day, what I believe we all desire is to be unforgettable. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be visible. And we want to make a mark. And a brand is a mark, is it not? So that is really the point of an unforgettable brand.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to say you are unforgettable, Judy. So you are the avatar for your brand.
Right,
I want to take us down. So, you know, you talk the walk and you walk the talk. You know, that's part of leadership, and that's exactly what you do. And I want to take us down the path now of, let me see, which way do I want to go with you? I feel like, because we've already talked a little bit about evolution, And because we're right now in the pandemic stage, and we already had that little conversation before the break about people who are, well-positioned, people who are straddling, and people who are, maybe getting their face planted by the waves, I want to talk about letting go of what no longer serves. So I'd love to have you, because I'm sure when you go in to work with people, there's stuff that they're doing or the ways that they're presenting themselves or positioning themselves that need to be shed. And so I'd love to have you just talk a little bit about the process, either in your own life and business or with your clients, around letting go of what no longer serves, discerning what it is and how to let it go and let it be easy. And, is there ways that you can keep some of the stuff? I mean, a lot's falling apart right now. You said it yourself. Our business environment has been broken for a long time. Our healthcare system's broken. Our legal system's broken. Our political system's broken. And we are now here in this time, this creative age, for what's breaking through as well from all the breaking down.
Yes. So the interesting thing about that is that this endeavor, this process, this procedure, this, again, technique has been in my toolbox and how I've worked for quite a number of years now, somewhere around a decade. What I found is that the day, you and I were talking about it earlier, that remember the good old days where, and this is 1,000 years ago, when I was a baby dinosaur, that people would say, oh, of course your website is going to cost you $43 million, but it's not a big deal because you're only going to need to do it one time and then you're set for life. You'll never have to change it. Well, that wasn't true. And the truth of the matter is that we live in very fast changing, fast moving times. And gone are the days where you can set it and forget it for a year, 5 years, or a decade. We can't do that with anything. So with my clients, we literally do this review quarterly. And we take a look at where are we, where do we want to go? I call it, we design a map. It's a motivated action plan, which varies for every business owner, every leader, every group. How you're going to get from here to there, it's different. And so we now know that right now it's really different for a lot of people. So that's awesome. I find that to be so exciting. I know that's so weird, but I do. So how can we take this, I'm the cheerleader on the sidelines, and how do we figure out then, now what? Oh boy, we're not excited that people are ill and dying, but what is opening now? What is the opportunity now? How can we be on this planet and be of service at a higher level that we just didn't see before, that wasn't available in our sightlines prior? And we look at that on an ongoing basis. So for me, always the first thing to do is to stop and assess. So we're constantly, you don't assess once. You're always assessing. So whether you're doing it every 30 days or 90 days or every week, and maybe now in this period, we're doing it every day, that may be called for. So that will actually help to connect you to more opportunities and more possibilities. You're not going to brainstorm and come up with 10 ideas, pick one, and then you're good. It doesn't work that way. And it's very interesting. I don't know if anybody ever read the book. It's called, I want to say it's called Created by Design. And it's it's Mr. Kelly from IDEO. And one of the things that they say at the beginning of the book, because I love it, it's all about design thinking and creative problem solving, is that most people, when they're given an unlimited budget and no constraints, it's actually harder to design. It's easier to design. If somebody says, look, I have no money, I have 10 days, and this is all I have to work with, now you have these constraints, right? So for people that have never lived like this, think about what happens on Top Chef, or what happens on, what's the fashion show where they do?
I can't remember the name of it.
You know what I mean? Where they're making clothes each week.
Yeah.
They're doing crazy stuff that normally would take months or years, and they're knocking this stuff out in 2 days.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy. But when you have particular constraints, it allows you to actually more quickly access solutions and dive into your creativity in a way that if we said, look, if you get to this in a year, 10 years, we're good. And by the way, we don't care how much it costs. What happens is, and I've done this as a designer because that's how I started in the branding world. If I had a client that didn't get back to me and didn't turn it around, like all the energy, all the fizz, it's like your soda, right? Or champagne, all the fizz kind of goes out. You may not notice it at first, but when you go to take a sip, it's just not there.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens in a creative job. And your business is your place to play with your creativity. So the same thing pertains.
Yeah.
You gotta get going while that fizz is happening.
Beautiful. And you bring up the point of having boundaries, having really clear boundaries around, even if you have to self-impose, even if you have to say, oh,
That's right.
All we have is the next 24 hours and we've got to get this done in the next 24 hours because of whatever reason. It doesn't even matter. Just make the boundaries, right?
I mean, there's so many ways to play with it. Yes. So constraints can be a number of things. So maybe they're financial, maybe they're time driven, but it may be that you have some non-negotiables. Like I think of all the people, like you and I are used to working from home and working from the road and being virtual and all of the things, right? But think of people, and I'm single. So people are now, they're home with their kids. They are not in an office. They don't have time constraints. All this stuff is out the window. That can be challenging. So we need to revisit your non-negotiables because your non-negotiable 2 months ago could have been quality time with your kids. But now how you interpret quality time with your kids, it's just not the same.
Not at all. And maybe your non-negotiable now is a nice hot bath with the door closed and nobody knocking. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, we are right at the end of the show. Jay, I really appreciate the time that you've taken with me today. And I wanted to just ask if there's one final thing that you would like to say to the people who are listening, either about some of the stuff that we've already talked about or anything else, maybe being unforgettable. Now's your time.
Well, that is actually what I'd like to share. So I just would really encourage anyone that's listening, whether it's during this crazy pandemic that we're all so excited about, or at some future date. The truth of the matter is that we are all unforgettable. It's not an accident that you are a business owner or aspire to be an entrepreneur and a business owner. It's no accident. And everyone who's listening at any time, please know that you already are unforgettable. You already are a brand. And marrying the two into your self-expressed business so that it brings you prosperity, abundance, and joy is just as accessible to you today as it is ever. And if you're not sure about that, please reach out because I'd like to prove that to you.
Beautiful. I love it. And Jay, you are definitely the one to do that for people. So listeners, please do check out Jay at unforgettableBrands.com/special gifts. And again, we will put that into the show notes. Listeners, we do love feedback. Please let us know what you thought of today's show or send in questions or guest suggestions to listeners at wickedlysmartwomen.com. We might even give you a shout out on the show. Thanks for tuning in. Keep your ears open. And remember, you are a wonderful woman.
Thanks for tuning in, downloading, and listening. Be sure to review and rate Wickedly Smart Women on Apple Podcasts and share with other women who can benefit from today's episode. Wickedly Smart Women is the premier podcast series for informing, activating, and inspiring the leader who carries profound wisdom and knows that now is the time to welcome wealth. We welcome your feedback and guest suggestions and invite you to subscribe to our mailing list to be notified of each episode at wickedlysmartwomen.com.